Good day, colleagues and learners. Welcome to the MNED Grade 12 Learner Support Session 1 for Mathematical Literacy. In this session, we will have a look at two concepts from Paper 1. So this session is going to look a little bit different than what we are used to. Let's quickly see how we will approach this session. First of all, let's start with the resources. You should have your learner notes or activities open in front of you at all times. You can work alongside this presentation. Ask your teacher if you are unsure of any concepts, and should there be questions that you would like to go back to afterwards, you are welcome to mark those. And the most important thing of today is to try your best. Let's have a look at what the presentation is going to look like. We will have the question where we will pause and then unpack the context together. Context will then be unpacked, and whilst we are doing that, you should be making notes or highlight or underline some important concepts as we work through them. Lastly, there are going to be set times for you to complete sub-questions by yourself, and other times the tutor will be explaining a question for you. Try your very best to complete the question in the time provided, as this is important when writing your final examination to manage your time properly. Mark your solutions once the memorandum comes up on the board and make your corrections as needed. So what can we expect in paper 1 as a collective? We know that the paper will be 3 hours long for 150 marks. If we do the maths around that, we calculate that we have about 1 minute and 12 seconds per mark. If you work on maybe 1 minute per mark, it leaves you with that extra 12 seconds accumulated across the paper to go through any work that you may have missed out on. Content-wise, you are looking at 60% finance, 35% data handling, and 5% probability. The probability that you see will be integrated into finance and data handling. The breakdown of the questions will be as follows. Question 1, we're looking at all our level 1 type questions, and these are the questions that we should really aim to get full marks for. There will be a mixture of the finance and data handling in this question. Question 2 will focus on finance only, and question 3 we will have our data handling. When we get to question 4 and 5, here we start to integrate the context of finance and data handling again, and oftentimes our probability can be included here as well. Right then, let's get started with tutor session 1, subtopic finance. Let's have a look at activity 1, water tariffs. The table below shows the step water tariff rates on a sliding scale for residential properties in Cape Town. As from 1 February 2018, level 6 tariffs were charged, and then they give us the step table in table 1. So let's pause and unpack the content together. If we have a look at the story in the beginning, they say here the water tariffs work on a sliding scale. Something else that could be important is that the water tariff rates changed to level 6 on the 1st of February 2018. And we can see that they give us level 4 and level 6. So there are two different rates that we are working with here. Furthermore, we can see that all of these rates are including a 15% VAT. But what I want to get back to is, what does it mean if the water tariffs are working on a sliding scale? So let's go back down here to our table. It says here in step 1 that it is more than 0 kiloliters up to 6 kiloliters at these two rates given over here for level 4 and level 6. So what's important here is in each step, we only have a certain number of kiloliters available to use at that rate before we start paying more. So in this first one, we can say that we have 6 kiloliters available at this rate. In the next step, however, we are not going to pay this rate for a full 10 kiloliters, but instead we have 4 kiloliters that we can use at this rate. And then, of course, in the next one, we've got 10 kiloliters available. In the fourth step, we've got 15 kiloliters available, and so on. Let's take 11 kiloliters as a quick example before we start the questions. If I want to calculate how much I will pay for 11 kiloliters, I'm going to use the first 6 at this rate. Then I'm going to use the second 4 kiloliters in step 2's rate. And then I will only use 1 kiloliter from step 3 to make up my 11 kiloliters. So now that we've unpacked the content, I would like you to try question 1.1 and 1.2 by yourself. Perfect. That is it for your 4 minutes on question 1.1 and 1.2. So let's have a look. The question stated that we want to identify the tariff on level 4 if a household used an amount of water that is between 20 kiloliters and 35 kiloliters. So let's quickly have a look again. They say level 4. They say between 20 and 35 kiloliters. So we can see at the end of the day that it's going to be the 43 Rand 69 cents. And for this, you will be rewarded with 2 accuracy marks. Question 1.2, write down the step or interval in which you will pay 52 Rand 44 on level 6. So here again, we are working with level 6. So there we've got level 6. They say we must identify the level at which we will pay 52 Rand 44. So that would be in step number 2. You can also mention the number of kiloliters available in that step, and this will also be for 2 accuracy marks. Remember to mark your work as we go through the solutions. Question 1.3 I'm going to do with you, so please follow along. Question 1.3 says to calculate the VAT exclusive, and this is important, the VAT exclusive tariff of step 1 of level 6. So if we highlight that, level 6, step 1, and that's the 29 Rand 93. But when we unpack the context, we said we saw that all the tariffs are including that. Right, so we will approach this question by taking the value in the table, 29 Rand 93, divided by 1,15, and that will give us a VAT exclusive tariff of 26 Rand and 3 cents. You can, of course, use a fraction over here and say that it is multiplied by 100 over 115, which will give you the same answer. Mark allocation is awarded as a method for dividing by the 1,15 and an accuracy mark for your answer of 26,03. Question 1.4, we will approach a little bit different. You will see it is 8 marks in total. So what I will do is I will do the first half with you, and then I'm going to give you time to try the second half yourself. So let's get started. 1.4 says we need to calculate how much more a household will pay on level 6 compared to level 4 for consuming 37 kiloliters. So 2 levels, and then we need to draw a comparison between the two. I have done level 4 for you. Let's go through the answer, and then you are going to do the same approach with level 6 and then draw a conclusion from there. If we have a look, remember we said it works in a step table. So 37 kiloliters is going to lie in the 5th step, which means that I need to have 5 calculations before I can get to my final answer. And this is how the calculations will then look like. In the first step, we said when we unpack the context that we have 6 kiloliters available at that tariff rate. In the second one, we have 4 available at that tariff rate. And in the third one, we have 10 available. In the fourth one, 15. Now, for each of these, we are going to multiply it with the tariff rate. But before we have a look at those answers, let's quickly see where this 2 is coming from. If I say 15 plus 10 plus 4 plus 6, it nearly brings me to 35 kiloliters. But the question said that we need to get to a total of 37. So because I only have 15 kiloliters available to use at that specific tariff in step 4, I have to go to the next one, step 5, and fill up my 37 kiloliters. So the 2 is the 37 kiloliters minus all the kiloliters we already accounted for, multiplied by the tariff in that step. If we add up all the prices for each water step, we get to an amount of 1,241 Rand and 93 cents. This is only level 4. This is the first 3 marks of the question. Now there are 5 marks remaining, and I want you to follow this same approach and draw a conclusion for the next 5 marks. Try the question by yourself. Okay, learners, that is your 6 minutes up. I'm sure that you would have done level 6 by now. So let's have a look at what you should have gotten as an answer. Same approach. 6 in the first step, 4 in the second, 10 in the third, 15 in the fourth, and our last remaining 2 in the fifth step. This gave us an amount of 5,363 Rand and 34 cents. So your sub amounts, you were supposed to get 6 times 29 Rand 93 is 179 Rand 58. 4 times 52 Rand 44 is 209 Rand 76 cents. 10 times 114 Rand is 1,140. 15 times 1,000, I'm lying, it's 134, which gave us 2,010 Rand. And in our last step, 2 times 912, which was 1,824, giving us our final total for level 6. Right, now let's bring our two answers together. I have displayed both level 4 and level 6 here, but we are not done with the question. We still need to do a comparison of how much more would have been paid. So we are going to take the totals of level 6, subtract the total of level 4, which then gives us a difference of 4,121 Rand and 41 cents. So let's have a look at how you will receive your 8 marks. Your first mark is a method accuracy for multiplying with the correct number of kiloliters per step. Your RT mark is going for identifying the correct tariffs because you had to choose between the level 4 and the level 6. Your final mark for this section is for adding up the cost for each step. The same 3 marks will be awarded in level 6, a method accuracy for multiplying by the correct number of kiloliters, RT for choosing the correct tariffs from the table, and CA for adding them all together. Your final 2 marks are going to be a method mark for subtracting the lowest one from the highest and then giving a CA mark for your final answer. Remember, in order for a CA mark to be awarded, you must show a comparison between two things in this question. So if you only did level 4, unfortunately, there's nothing to compare it to, and you will lose your final 2 marks as well. Time to look at activity number 2. Let's go through the question. Milan, who is 64 years old, earned an annual taxable income of 551,762 Rand for the 2019 or 2020 tax year. During that time, Milan was not a member of any medical fund. Table 1 shows the tax table, and we can see we've got our 7 tax brackets over there. Table 2 shows the tax rebates as well as the medical aid credits for the same tax year. So let's pause and unpack the content. They say here Milan is 64 years old. That is important information. Then we have taxable income. Now, this is going to be important when we look at our tax steps. Then we've got our tables, and we read here during the tax year, he was not a member of any medical fund. So he's 64 years old, he's got a taxable income already calculated, and he did not belong to a medical aid. Let's look at your annual income tax cheat sheet before we answer any of the questions. In step 1, it says that we need to calculate the annual gross income. Gross income, remember, that is your income before any deductions. To get your annual income, you will take your monthly multiplied by 12. If you receive a 13th check, you need to multiply that amount by 13 because we still pay tax on any bonuses or 13th checks that we receive. Step 2, we subtract tax deductible deductions, for example, a pension fund, and this information will be given to you if they want you to use it. Step 3 consists of 2 sections. When we subtract in step 2, our answer will be the A in step 3, our annual taxable income. What often happens is we give you the taxable income already, then you skip step 1 and 2. But if we don't give you taxable income, then you must still complete step 1 and step 2. Once you have your taxable income, we move to point B, where we then go to our tax tables to determine the amount of annual tax payable. Annual is the key word. Up to this point, we still haven't dealt with a monthly. We are dealing with our annual tax. In step 4, we are going to subtract the applicable rebates. Now, rebates is sort of a discount that we all get on our tax. The amount is just dependent on the age. So important, everybody receives a rebate. The amount is dependent on your age. Then lastly, step 5. The difference between medical credits and tax rebates is that everyone receives a rebate, but not everyone receives medical credits. Only people who belong to a medical aid receive medical credits. So if the person does not belong to a medical aid, you skip step 5. Then lastly, it's not on your cheat sheet, but this is something you need to know. You can add that onto your notes. If we then ask you for the monthly tax, these 5 steps deal with annual tax. Then you still need to divide your step 5 answer or your step 4 answer by 12 to receive your monthly tax payable. Right, let's get started with the questions, and I'm going to leave the first one over to you. Perfect. Let's have a look at your answer for question 2.1. Question 2.1 asked, identify which tax bracket Milan falls in based on his taxable income. So let's quickly have a look. We said that this is important. The 551,762 Rand, that is his taxable income. To find the bracket in which Milan falls, we will have a look here and identify the bracket where this value will fall into. So 551 will fall into this bracket. So your answer is going to be tax bracket number 4, and that will be for 2 accuracy marks. You can also say the 423,301 up to 555,600, or you can even write this out. Either option will still give you 2 marks. Right, let's have a look at the next question. Right, question 2.2 says to calculate the amount of tax that Milan must pay for the 2019-2020 tax year. Now, what is important to remember here is that the taxable income has already been given to us in our story. I just want to highlight it again for us. The taxable income has already been given to us. So we are going to skip step 1, we are going to skip step 2, and we are going to go directly to step number 3. Now, very important to focus on how we implement these steps, because the next question, question 2.3, you are going to try the same or similar question yourself. So let's have a look. Step 3 says that we need to identify the tax bracket. We did that in the previous question. And then we are also going to substitute the taxable income. You will see the story reads 100,263 Rand plus 36% of taxable income above 423,300. So we need to calculate the difference between his taxable income and that 423,300. Then we are going to calculate 36% of that 128,462. If we continue with the sum, we get 146,509 Rand and 32 cents. This amount here that we just calculated, this is the amount before tax rebates or medical credits. Therefore, we said everybody receives a tax rebate, so we need to now decide how much is this person going to get. If we look at the rebates table, it says primary 14,220. Secondary starts from 65 and older. So therefore, we can decide now that Milan will only receive a primary rebate of 14,220, which is subtracted, giving us our final answer of 132,289,32 cents. Now remember, this is his tax payable for the entire year, and we cannot go further than this. The question did not ask for monthly, and he says that Milan does not belong to a medical fund, so we don't subtract any medical credits. Your mark allocation is going to be substitution into the formula for the tax bracket. Then a CA answer for adding the 46,246,32, as well as a CA answer for the tax payable before deductions. Then we get a method accuracy for subtracting the correct rebate. And finally, a CA mark will be awarded for your annual tax. Right, question 2.3, you've got 6 minutes. I want you to follow these steps, but read your question carefully. They say Milan is 1 year older, and they also say that he still doesn't belong to a medical aid, and they also say that he compares his monthly savings. Let's have a look at your answer for question 2.3. Milan stated that if he had been 1 year older, he would have saved more than 600 monthly on taxes paid during the year. Verify showing all calculations whether his statement is correct. Remember, his taxable income does not change. He is no longer 64, but he is now 65, which means he gets a primary as well as a secondary rebate. So remember, early on we said everybody receives rebates, but your age depends how much you are going to get. So if you are 65 and older, I always want you to remember you are going to receive a higher rebate the older you are. Now we can see here, get my laser pointer, we can see here that 7,794 is not more than 14,220. So now I want you to remember that the older you are, the more rebates you get. If you are 65 and older, you get primary and secondary, which means if you are 75 and older, you are going to get primary, secondary, and tertiary. Perfect. So let's quickly have a look. Important, they ask us for the monthly this time. So we start by what Milan is currently paying for tax monthly. We take our answer from the previous question, divide that by 12 to give us the monthly tax that he pays whilst he is 64 years old, and that gives us 11,024 Rand 11 cents. Now we're going to move over to his annual tax payable if he is 65. Now, what I want you to remember from this value over here is we subtracted the primary rebates already to get that amount. So all we need to do now is add the subtraction of the secondary rebate. So we're going to subtract the 7,794, and that gives us an annual tax payable if he is 65 of 124,495,32. To compare that to the monthly tax payable when he is 64, we need to once again divide by 12, which gives us 10,374 Rand and 61 cents. Now remember, in the question, Milan stated that he is going to save more than 600 Rand if he is a year older. So now we need to subtract, and we get an amount of 649 Rand 50 cents, which is indeed more than 600. So therefore, his statement is correct. Let's have a look at your mark allocation. Your first mark is a method accuracy for division by 12 because we are talking about the monthly tax. Your second mark is an accuracy for subtracting the secondary rebate. And then you will get a method accuracy for doing the subtraction. Okay, so the method accuracy is awarded to the 124,495,32 cents. You will be awarded a CA mark for calculating the monthly tax payable when he is 65, so the 10,374 Rand 61. You'll get a CA mark after subtracting the 65 years minus the 64 years, and that gives you 649 Rand 50. And then your final mark is your opinion for saying his statement is indeed correct. The next question, we're going to have a look at medical credits. So I want you to focus on this table down here, the medical credits per month. Remember, this is per month, very important. And you are going to try question 2.3 yourself for me. Sorry, question 2.4. Perfect. Question 2.4 says, Milan is considering joining a medical fund. He plans to include his wife and 2 grandchildren. That's very important information. Wife and 2 grandchildren. Determine the total monthly medical credits he would qualify for if he joined a medical fund. So remember in the previous slide, we said we're only going to work with this bottom half of the table for medical credits. And we said wife and 2 grandchildren are quite important. So let's see who all's going to be on his medical aid. Malan himself is going to be on the medical aid. He is the main member, which is the 310. Then for the first dependent, which will be his wife, he will receive another 310. And then for each additional dependent, he's going to get 209 Rand. And he's going to add 2 grandchildren. So in our case, we are going to say 2 times the 209. The answer is 310 plus 310 plus 209 times 2, which gives us a final answer of 1,038 Rand. This medical credit he will receive monthly from his tax. You will get an RT mark for identifying all 3 correct values. You'll get a method accuracy mark for adding them all together or multiplying by the 2, and then you will get a CA mark for your answer. Okay, grade 12s, that brings us to the end of our tutor session 1 dealing on finance. Our next tutor session 1 is going over into our subtopic data handling. When it comes to data handling, you will need to be able to answer the following questions, and it all deals with the cycle of data handling. So you need to know about developing questions, collecting data, classifying and organizing, summarizing, representing in graphs, as well as analyzing already existing graphs. Let's turn to activity 3 in your notes. In South Africa, many people are suffering from chronic health conditions. Population estimation in thousands have been given in the table below. They're just explaining here also what a chronic health condition is. It means that you are receiving ongoing medical attention or you take medicine on a daily basis or a regular period. In our table, we can see we're going to deal with asthma, diabetes, and high blood pressure. We see that the number of people per chronic health condition have been split into male and female across the 9 provinces that we have in South Africa. Right, let's pause and unpack the content. The most important thing that I want you to note is that the estimation has been given in thousands. This means that every single value you see on this table must still get a 3 zeros behind them so that they are represented in 1,000. You are going to try question 3.1 for me on the notes. 3.1 says to calculate the total number of males with chronic health conditions in KwaZulu-Natal. So first of all, we need to identify or find KwaZulu-Natal. So there I've highlighted it for us. And then they don't specify asthma, diabetes, or high blood pressure. They want the total number of males with any chronic health condition. So we are going to look at the 69 who have asthma, the 99 who have diabetes, and the 214 who have high blood pressure. If we add all of those together, we get 382,000. Remember, we said when we unpack the context that those values are in thousands. If you said 69 plus 99 plus 214 equals 382, and then said therefore the final answer is 382,000, that is perfectly fine. You will still receive full marks. Question 3.2, use the number of diabetic people to determine the provincial range among provinces in South Africa. When we are dealing with range, your formula is always going to be the highest value minus the lowest value. So now all we need to do is have a look at our values. So we are going to have a look at diabetes. The highest value here seems to be 363. Remember, it's in thousands. And our lowest value here seems to be 34,000. So we're going to subtract from one another, and our range is then 329,000. Mark allocation, you're going to receive an RT mark for the highest and the lowest value, and method accuracy for subtracting and implementing the range formula, and your third mark will be a CA mark for the answer. I'm going to give you some time, about 4 minutes, to try question 3.3 for me. Perfect, that's time. Let's have a look. Question 3.3 says to calculate the provincial mean number of people with hypertension, HBP, high blood pressure in South Africa. So mean is also another word for average. When we calculate the average, we're going to add up all the data values and then we're going to divide it by the number of data values and that will give us our answer. So if we have a look at which values to choose, we are looking at high blood pressure and they say this is across all provinces. Across all provinces therefore means, I apologize for that little mistake, means we are going to use all of these totals that appear in the bottom over here. Right, so let's have a look. We're going to add them all together, which then gives us 4,736,000. Remember, we're working in thousands. To calculate the mean, we're going to divide that by the 9 provinces, and that gives us an answer of 526,222,22. You will receive a method accuracy for adding the values together, a method accuracy for dividing by the number of provinces, and a CA mark for your final answer. Determine the median of the total chronic health condition of various provinces in the RSA. So let's just quickly talk about median versus the mean. In question 3.3, we dealt with the mean. We saw that was the average of all the data values. So we add the data values together, divide by the number of data values, and then we get the average. The median, however, is the value exactly in the middle. But what we need to remember is in order to find the value exactly in the middle, we must arrange the data in ascending order. So from smallest to biggest. Let's quickly have a look. They say here the median of total chronic health conditions. Now, we've been given 3 totals. If we speak of the total chronic health conditions, it means the total of all 3. So what needs to happen now is we need to add all the values of each total of each province together and write them down. So I'm going to do the first one. For example, we had, my apologies for the slip. We had the Western Cape, 1,225. So we got that by saying 186 plus 314 plus 725. Right. Once we have each province, Eastern Cape, 987, Northern Cape, 203, Free State, 433, KZN, 1,290, Northwest 547, Gauteng 1,803, Mpumalanga 500 and Limpopo 406. After that, we need to arrange the data. So we're arranging it 203 is the smallest and 1,803 is the highest. Our median is 547. Let's have a look at that breakdown. If I select 547 as my median, to double check, I can count the number of data values to the right and the number of data values to the left. I see 1, 2, 3, 4 data values, 1, 2, 3, 4 data values to the left, and 1, 2, 3, 4 data values to the right. So 547 is indeed the correct answer. Mark allocation, a method accuracy for calculating all 9 provinces' total chronic health conditions. Then you get a CA mark for arranging the data in ascending order from smallest to biggest. And then you will receive a CA mark for identifying the median. Right, grade 12, you are going to take the next 10 minutes and you are going to work on questions 3.5 and 3.6 by yourself for me. Right, 3.5, you had to use the answer sheet to draw a line graph to represent the total number of people suffering from diabetes. So you have 3 method accuracy marks. The first method accuracy mark is going to go, I just want to get my highlighter. Your first method accuracy mark is going to go for the first 3 provinces. Then your second method accuracy mark is going to go for the second 3 provinces, and your third method accuracy is going to go for your last 3 provinces. Your final mark is a CA mark for joining the line. This is a broken line graph. It doesn't go in a linear pattern, and that is perfectly fine because all the values are different. I am going to pause for a little bit on this slide to give you time to make sure that you have all the graph information. Okay, let's have a look at 3.6. This was the probability question, and we had to determine the probability as a percentage, this is important, of randomly selecting a diabetic female. So here we're working with diabetes among KZN, all right, so KZN, and we're looking at females, that's 264,000. Determine the probability as a percentage of randomly selecting a diabetic female among chronic health suffering people in KwaZulu-Natal. So we've identified the first important value. The number of females with diabetes in KZN is 264. But the question is asking, what are the chances that we are going to select that female out of all the chronic health suffering people in KZN? So then we are going to add up the totals of everybody who have chronic health diseases. 170 plus 363 plus 757, and that gives us 1,290. To find the probability as a percentage, we are going to say 264 divided by 1,290 multiplied by 100. That is our probability formula for percentages, which gives us 20,465%, and you can round that to 20,5%. The general rule is if we don't give you instructions, then you will not be penalized as long as your rounding is correct. But if we state you have to round to 2 decimal places, then you must round to 2 decimal places. Otherwise, you are going to lose a mark. Speaking of marks, let's have a look at your mark allocation. First one is for identifying the 264. Second one is a method for adding the total number of people who have chronic diseases in KZN together. A method mark for applying the probability, and a CA mark for your final answer. Moving on to activity 4 in your learner notes, the population of the Republic of South Africa during the mid-year of 2020 was estimated at 59,62 million. The graph below represents the population per province. So let's pause and unpack the content together. We can see here what's very important is that the population in total was 59,62 million. And we actually notice that there's a value missing from Gauteng. Okay, so what we have here is a bar graph showing all 9 of our provinces and population, very important, in millions. So all the commas that we see still need to move across to the right-hand side 6 times to represent the number in millions. Right, so I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do the very first question by yourself. Right, the question says to state the type of graph used to display the information. And if you were listening very, very carefully, I would have already given you a hint that this is a bar graph for 2 accuracy marks. Right, you are going to take a couple of minutes to do the next question, question 4.2. Question 4.2 says to determine the population of Gauteng and write the final answer in words. Now, we actually unpacked that. We said the total population is 59,62. In other words, if we add all the provinces together, that is what we should be getting. But then we see Gauteng has been left blank. So in order to calculate that, we are going to subtract all our other provinces' values from the 59,62 million, and we will find our answer. However, that is still only one part of the question. The first part is to determine the population, and the second part is that we still need to write that answer down in words. So let's have a look. To calculate the total population in Gauteng, I said we are going to subtract, here's the minus, all the other values in the other provinces from the total of 59,62. So we're subtracting 44,13, giving us 15,49 million. But we can't write 15,49 in words. So we are going to convert that into a number first, 15490,000. And then finally we can say 15,490,000. Mark allocation is a method accuracy for adding all of the other provinces together. Another method accuracy for subtracting them from the big total. An accuracy mark for converting the number from numbers and words to only numbers. And then a CA answer for writing your answer in words only. Okay, grade 12s, this brings us to our final question of the day, calculating the interquartile range. Now, early on, we worked with the range, and we said that is the highest minus the lowest. The interquartile range follows the same concept. However, now we are working with quartiles. So quartile 3, which is still the higher value, minus quartile 1, which is still the lowest value. So let's have a look. We are first going to arrange the population in order so that we can determine our quartile 1 and our quartile 3. Once we've located our quartile 1 and quartile 3, we can calculate the interquartile range. Right, before we find quartile 1 and quartile 3, we need to find quartile 2, which is our median. And that seems to be the 5,85. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 values to the left and 1, 2, 3, 4 values to the right. Perfect. So that means, let me get my highlighter. These two values, my apologies, these two values as well as this value and this value then make up my quartile 1 and quartile 3. So let's have a look. Quartile 1, we are going to add the 2,93 and the 4,11, divide that by 2, which gives us 3,52. For quartile 3, we do the same. We add the two values together, we divide by 2, and that's 9,27. Finally, we have our interquartile range where we're going to subtract the smaller value from the higher value to get 5,75 million. Mark allocation is a method accuracy for arranging the data in order. A CA value for finding quartile 1, a CA value for finding quartile 3, a substitution into the formula of calculating the interquartile range, and a CA for your final answer of 5,75. Okay, grade 12s, we have officially reached the end of our tutor session 1, finance and data handling. It has been wonderful to have you. I hope this has been helpful. Remember, we said at the beginning, mark any questions that you want to go back to, ask your teacher for help, and always just try your very, very best. Make sure you always know what's happening in all of your papers and which content you need to study. And remember, practice, practice, practice. And repetition is going to be your best friend. All the best for your exams.